Hi folks, Dave with dbstechtalk, and today we are going to talk about the Reecho Peacock Spring Day. The Reecho Peacock Spring Day was sent in by a subscriber and a viewer, Lori. I do greatly appreciate it. Thank you for your willingness to send this out for review. Do greatly appreciate it. And Lori, you rock. Check out the links down below for where you can purchase the Spring Day and also for all kinds of other information regarding this review, things that are mentioned like songs and playlists. There'll be lists down below. Also lists for the gear that was used during the review, and also ways that you can support the channel, either how you can send in gear for a review or to support via got some on my eyebrow there. Ways that you can support the channel, either by subscribing, hitting the notification bell, also by PayPal, Patreon. Thanks. Alright, so the Reecho Peacock Spring Day comes in a big box and has some writing on it that says Sound of 4 Seasons. Then really tiny lettering, it says Spring Day. On the back there's a bunch of stuff that I can't read. There are your IEMs. Feels hefty. And it also has a high-res sticker, so it's got to be good. Slide off the sleeve here. There are your IEMs a little bit closer. Opens up like a book. You have a big huge carrying case and a little envelope that says Reecho. Instructions, there's a bunch of stuff in there. Very hard print to read. And then you get a ton, and I mean a ton of tips. Good carrying case. And then you pop out your IEMs. There they are. Take a closer look at those. We'll talk about the case and the tips here in a minute. So the Peacocks are just absolutely gorgeous. I haven't seen too many prettier IEMs than this, especially in the price point. Resin shell, and has green, blue, a little bit of gold. Has a very unique shape, very similar to a custom. Has a big old nozzle, and look at the way that's shaped. That's gonna come into play in the conversations. See if I can get my hand out of the way so it'll focus. There we go. Got a little 2-pin. Extremely small, very light. I find them to fit extremely well. Alright, let's see what else we get in the box. So you get this carrying case, which is really massive. Thick, feels durable, feels premium. You get a bag with your cable in it. And you get a little hook. And for the price tag, this has got to be the nicest cable that I've come across. Nice, thick, but also soft and moves around, doesn't tangle. Nice casing, good strain relief. 3.5. I just love the look of that with that little ridge. Then you go to the split, get that same look, and you get a nice slider, which is hard to see on camera, but it says Reecho. And then it has their design. Ear hooks, just enough tension to be good, not enough tension to be annoying. I find it to be a very comfortable IEM with no problems. Very light lettering that says L and R, but it is in a darker color, so it makes it a little bit easier. It's hard to see on camera. Try to get a focus here. There it is. So that's the left. And I just, boop, pop right on. Get them lined up and just squeeze them on. Very easy. Love the look with the blue cable. And they're just gorgeous to look at. Alright, what else we get? We get all of these tips, and well, as much as I enjoy getting that amount of tips, I wish I could use them. There's a couple of various problems. Number one, foams I won't put, especially if someone else sent gear. And if it's my own, I'll use the foams for stocks, but I won't use these because I don't want to get my ear juices all over it and then send it back to Lori. The other interesting thing is they're all labeled. So you've got green, and then you've got like this orangey pinky color. You've got like black on the stems, and they're all differently shaped, which is cool. And you get small, medium, and large. You also get a clear with a black, and that's nice. But I'm going to try to explain by doing a little example here of the problem that I had with these tips. So this happened on all of them that I tried. Put it on. They fit very easy, and you kind of have to wiggle it onto place. And oh, hey, it's on. Let's put this other one on. And boom, it's off. It was, in fact, when I reached down to grab it, the other one fell off. They just don't stay on. I lost so many tips in my ears because I would put them on and I'd get it sitting on there, and then they just do this number. They just come off. They don't like sitting on that nozzle, and no matter how far down you push it, no matter how even you put it, none of the tips did. All of them did that. I had to get tweezers out many a time and pluck ear tips, the stock ear tips, out of my ears. And if I lose ear tips in my ears, that's a no-no for a headphone. Immediately. That's no. So anyways, all the stock tips did that. Didn't matter if it was the clears, if any of the blacks with any of the colors. Didn't matter what size, whether it was small, mediums, or larges, with the different various tips, colors. Green, that pinkish orange color, blacks, or the clears. It did not matter one bit. These tips do not work. Now, if you have these and you can get these tips to work on there, cool. But I could not. So I'm going to recommend that you use alternate tips. Now, I've gotten criticized for saying you have to change tips and that you have to spend extra money in order to use an experience with an IEM. And I totally understand people want to use the stock tips and don't want to spend extra money when they're already buying something. But if the stock tips don't work, you have to replace them with an alternate. And so I recommend 2 tips. I recommend my usual go-to, which are the RHA dual density tip. And then also I recommend some Comply 400 tips. You can also use JLab foam clouds. Those also work. But we will do all sound impressions using the RHA tip. And I found that the RHA tip just goes on there and stays on there. They do not rise up and fall off. And so I do not know what is going on with those stock tips, Reecho and Peacock, but you have got to figure that out, because that's a problem. So anyways, all sound impressions will be done with the RHA dual density tip. As far as isolation and separation of outside noises, put this in here, and with the RHA tip on, I get really good seal. Now you have to press them in pretty good, and you do get a little bit of driver flex. But once they're in, and they isolate really well. Probably block about, I would say, probably close to 70% of outside noises off. Now it's just a guesstimate, but they do a really good job of isolating. But you have to insert them really deeply. You cannot just do a shallow insert. That causes massive problems with sound. And here's the other problem with the tip. If you don't insert them and press them all the way in and really get the seal, you're going to not get good quality bass, and also your treble is going to be very hot, and you are going to have a lot of shoutiness and harshness. So make sure that you are inserting those tips extremely far. Now you do get better isolation with the foam tips, and I found that the foams were also very comfortable, and they added a little bit of warmth and body to them, to the spring day, and I really did enjoy that. But I liked a little bit less stuffy of a sound that the RHA dual densities provided, so it was a very minute difference, but I liked the silicones a little bit better. Overall, how do the Reecho Peacock Spring Day sound? They're soft, pleasing, and enjoyable. They have a way of approaching you and engaging you in a soft and pleasant tone. It's like somebody who comes up to you, and even when they're mad at you, they just kind of say it in a way that's not offensive, and you're not getting all defensive and immediately wanting to shout back at them. It's more like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened, or I'm so sorry that I treated you that way or did that, and let's work it out. It's not, oh, no way, no way, and you get all defensive. It's not that. These are a very soft, pleasing approach to the music. Bass. The bass lacks sub bass. It rolls off pretty quickly, and sub bass is pretty much non-existent. You can hear it very subtle and in very random moments. You'll be like, oh, there it is, and it's gone. So the sub bass isn't really present. This is more of a mid bass and upper bass sounding IEM. Unfortunately, the mid bass and upper bass is very soft. It's pleasing, has decent details and clarity, but it lacks impact, and it's not very overpowering at all. And at times I was actually wishing for more bass. I just wish that there was a little bit more there. Even if it was a mid bass shelf, I just wish that I could get a little bit more body to it and a little more thump and impact. Lower mids to upper bass region it lacks cohesion when it when there's a transition. It doesn't really bleed in. It more just sounds a little off. Like it lacks more body in that region, and instruments can lack some girth to them and just presentation. It just doesn't sound quite right. Going from lower mids through the mids, tonality comes through pretty good. Timbre tends to have a little bit of a metallicness to it with that 1 BA coming through, but you do have a nice fullness to the main mids region and upper mids region. But every now and then that metallic BA sound can come through, and it'll just sound a little unnatural, especially with like pianos and the decay areas and guitars and stuff. They just have a little bit of metallic sound to them. The tonality is good though within the main, so strings, guitars, cellos, brass instruments, things like that do sound very nice and tonally correct. The transition from upper mids to lower treble can also have a little bit of a hotness to it, and it only really shows it on certain genres of music, and it's very, very bizarre. So you'll just be going through your playlist and you'll be jamming along listening to something really good, and then a song that has a little more percussion energy or more treble energy will come on, and you're like, a little much. The treble, for the most part, is smooth. Does have a little bit of harshness and graininess to it on the top end, but for the most part, it's a very nice, pleasing treble. Has some nice, good air to it, and does a decent job in resolution throughout as far as treble, mids, and bass. But it's not the best resolving IEM out there, but it does a good job. It is very pleasing. It's not super annoying. The treble does have some glare and shimmer issues, especially with crashing cymbals and with hi-hats, and especially songs in which the hi-hats are really going strong. You will hear it just doesn't decay, and it kind of lingers and shimmers and glares a little too much than it should. Soundstage is wide. It has a nice width to it. The depth and layering is okay. It's not the best placed. It can sound a little jumbled on busier tracks. It can also sound a little inaccurate. For example, I was playing games, and sometimes sounds can be more center focused than they can be out on the outsides, and it was throwing me off when I was using Assetto Corsa Compensione and I was racing. I just couldn't place sometimes where other competition was, where other cars were and stuff like that, or how close they were. It just kind of threw me off every now and then. I couldn't tell. It always sounded like it was either right on the right side or on the left side. I couldn't really place it, whether it was right, left, corners, or how far back. It just didn't have quite the layering that I was hoping for in that. But for the most part, it was very pleasing. You don't really notice that in music too much, but in gaming, I did notice it a little bit more. Separation of instruments is good, and in the soundstage, it's a little bit on the little spaced out, and you get nice isolation and separation of instruments. You can really tell what is what. But on busier tracks, because of the way it does the depth and layering, it'll kind of cramp them together, and then they kind of start sounding one notish. It gets more confused on busier tracks, and it also becomes more hot and shouty on busier tracks. So the Peacock Spring Day is very interesting, especially when it comes to sources. I do not like it on desktop. Too much power, way too bright. They sound shimmery, tinny, lackluster, very grainy. It didn't really matter what source of music I was using, whether or not it was DSD MQA files or if it was just MP3 files or FLAC files on PC and desktop, it just didn't do it for me. I just didn't enjoy it. I did enjoy it though, somewhat, off of my phone, and because my phone is a Samsung Note 10 Plus and I have to use a dongle, I used 3 different dongles. I used XDuo Link, the ADV access port Lite, and also the Razer DAC amp, which is just a basic dongle. The Razer was the best one. It controlled the treble better, didn't have as much upper mids, lower treble hotness. The ADV access port Lite added in some warmth and controlled that, but it also made things sound a little bit more constricted and pushed in, a little more intimate. The XDuo Link was kind of a mixture between the two. I really enjoyed all 3 dongles, but the Razer DAC amp was the most pleasing. But the one that really impressed me the most for DAPs and portable use, and I used all my other DAPs, the Shanling M2X, the Shanling Q1, the Pioneer XDP30R, and the 2 Shanlings were good. It added nice warmth and had plenty of power, and it sounded alright, but it just sounded a little too thick for me, and I was missing out a little bit on the details and the airiness. The Pioneer was fine. At times I had a little too much power and would make things sound a little too tinny. But the one that did it for me was my little Sony NWA105. And this little DAP, if you turned on some of the features that it has for sound enhancements, the Reecho Peacock Spring 1 came alive. And that's what I used most of the time when I was listening to music, whether I was streaming Tidal or Deezer or listening to local files, DSD files or FLAC files on the Sony. The Spring 1 sounded the best to my ears, and it just sounded the most pleasing, and it was less fatiguing and had the least amount of upper mids, lower treble hotness. So the Reecho Peacock Spring Day, how do they compare to some of the others around it? Well, the Moondrop Starfields will sound warmer and also will sound darker when it comes to retrieving details. The details are still there, you just have to hunt for them a little bit more. The Spring Day is a little bit more brighter and a little more forward presenting with those details, and it just sounds a little bit more natural on the Reecho and Peacock. The Tin Hi-Fi T3 is going to be brighter, but resolves better and has better control throughout, and it has better tonal balance across the way. So going from the bass to the mids to the treble, it's more cohesive, and also you get better extension within the bass on the T3. And then going upwards in price, the shouty Form 1.4s. Now the shouty Form 1.4s are warmer. You have a little bit more intimate of a soundstage, but it resolves a little bit better, and you also end up with having a better bass presence, a lot better sub bass region, and the mids are more balanced. The Reecho Peacock Spring Day doesn't play very well with a lot of genres. I found that if you listen to metal, old school rock and roll, EDM or pop, they were just shredding to the ears and were not pleasant at all for me. I just found that the treble glare and sheen was just not good. If you listen to recordings that aren't mastered really well, these do not play well at all either. They just have a way of just bringing out that high end top end, and it just was painful. Where it does play really well is with genres of acoustical, jazz, new age, country, classical, and classic rock. I found that those to be the most enjoyable. And good thing is, I listen to most of those genres. So I actually found that the Reecho and Peacock Spring Day was very pleasing for the most part. Had just those little flaws in it. So if you're looking for a good option for a soft approach to music and a very relaxing sound that isn't boring or fatiguing, and it's just right with the right genres that I mentioned, then the Reecho Peacock Spring Day may be for you. Unfortunately, those flaws just hit in the wrong spots for me, and as much as I enjoy it, it's not for me. It's been Dave with DBS Tech Talk. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Again, I want to thank Lori for sending over the Reecho and Peacock Spring Day for a review. Do greatly appreciate it. Also, check out the links down below for a subscription link, notification bells, so that you'll know when the next video is coming up. And also, check out the links down below for all the information that is listed in this review as far as playlists used, gear used, how you can support the channel, and all kinds of other things that are, that are down there. It's been Dave with DBS Tech Talk. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.